All right. This is Monday, February 12th, and we'll be covering the chapter 2 of microeconomics, which is budget constraint. This is one of the foundation concepts of microeconomics, and I'll address a lot of questions, a lot of curiosity regarding to this. Why is it a straight line? Why not a curved line like a demand curve? And yeah, we'll see. Let's see. What exactly is a budget constraint? What? It's just English, right? Economics is just plain English. I don't know. It's a language that you speak. There's not much to. Of course, there is when you learn the math of it. It's just English and math. Budget is your whole income that you're willing to pay. Budget. And constraint is constriction on this. The money that you can that you're that you have available to pay. So budget constraint basically addresses two problems: the number of goods that you can buy with the amount of money you have. So that's by definition what a budget constraint is, and let's see what a consumption bundle is. I don't. We as humans don't usually consume just one good. We need multiple of goods to survive, to live, and to also we have differences in our needs and wants. So budget consumption bundle is a bundle, basically a set of a list, basically a set of two numbers that tells us how much the consumer is choosing to consume of good one and choosing to consume of good two. And there's a mathematical equation to denote it: price of good one and multiplied with the quantity of good one plus price of good two with multiplied with the quantity of good two has to be less than the income or whatever the money the person can afford to spend. And it's got to be less than or equal to this. Why are two goods enough? Why do we just take two goods in a consumption bundle? Because if we are talking about humans, we have infinite needs, and I mean, of course, we have like thousands of goods that we consume and need to consume. Then two goods are often enough, because for mathematical simplicity, and we can address the problem in a 2D diagram with a 2D graph and x and y coordinates axis. Also, because if we talk about relativity, we can choose one good as x1, and all of the other goods available in the market can be addressed as x2. So that makes more sense. And while we do that, while we consider all of the rest of the goods, it's called composite good. Stands for everything else that the consumer might want to consume other than good one. Properties of the budget set. So we learned a few things. We learned what a budget constraint is. We learned what a consumption bundle is. We learned what a budget set is. Set, combination of all the budget set is a combination of bundles of prices P1 and P2 and income M. Set. Okay. Composite good, we know what a composite good is now. Let's see what's a budget line. Budget line is a set of bundles that cost exactly M, which is exactly M. Okay, so this is something to be noted down. Budget line is a set of bundles that cost exactly M. Set is different, right? Set is a compilation of all the possible values of P1, of x1 and x2. Of P1 and P2, bundles of prices, budget set. But budget line is the set of bundles that cost exactly M. And we show it like this on a x and y axis. X is your good one and y is your good two. And if you know basic calculus and basic maths, then you know what slope is and the line. Why is it a straight line? I thought about it. Why not like a demand curve? Because even in demand curve we see that for a price we are consuming a good. Actually the thing is, and both of them are relative, right? Price and the demand, the quantity of a good demanded. The thing is that in demand curve we plot data points. There could be 100 customers, there could be 1,000 customers, there could be 1,000,000 customers, and the more and more data we plot on that graph, the more and more curvier it gets, or takes the shape of the outward curve. So it makes more sense why it's a straight line, because we're talking about one individual here, because only one individual is consuming good X or good Y, or both in some quantity. So we are just talking about one person, and that is the reason why it's a straight line. It could be some other reason as well, it could be some other mathematical reason, but मेरे हिसाब से तो common sense यही कहती है कि it's a one individual, that's why it's a straight line. There could be mathematical reasoning behind it as well. Now, what's the opportunity cost? Don't worry, we'll do all the questions of this chapter and all of the concepts, their derivations and stuff while we do the numericals. I'll make video on that as well while I do that, because I don't want to forget how I did them. They are important if you want to pursue a master's. So opportunity cost is something slope of the budget line measures the opportunity cost. It's like giving up the opportunity to consume good is a true economic cost of more good one consumption. The cost of letting go of one good for another good is the opportunity cost. I mean, मैं क्या बोलूँ, like economics seems such a common sense to me. मतलब is it not common sense? If you have 100 rupees and you can only spend 100 rupee, and you go to a shop and the shopkeeper has two types of fruits, apples and oranges, you might want to buy 50 rupees worth of apples and 50 rupees worth of oranges. But if you consume 60%, like 60 rupees of apples, then you will have to forego 10 rupees of oranges so as to consume just 40. So that's the opportunity cost that you're missing out on. It's just complicated terminology for very simple things in common sense. Let's see. Shifts in demand curve. So we see increasing in income. Whenever something happens to price, we see a change, like movement along it, but then there's an increase in income. If an income increases, of course you can consume more of both the goods. You can consume more of quantity of X2 as well, and more of apples and more of oranges as well, because you now have 200 rupees. So while you were consuming 50 and 50, now it's like 100 and 100, so you've shifted outward. It's so common sense. Easy peasy. What happens if a good is expensive? If good one becomes more expensive? So let's suppose apples becomes more expensive. Apples become more expensive. Which good one becomes more expensive? Okay, so this were apple, right? If good one becomes more expensive, the budget line becomes steeper. Okay. Makes sense. Also mathematically is also we can also see this algebraically. Suppose our original budget line is this, becomes t times as large, multiplying both times by t. This is as equal, multiplying follows, and budget line won't change at all. The reason why I don't focus so much on math, because math is challengeable. Also because economics has a lot of variables around it. The economics has a lot of it works in its own universe. It's in its own bubble of comfort level. We take a lot of things as constant, and while you're using scientific tools like math, you're putting them onto a model, onto your hypothetical situation where things are given or constant, taken as constant. So math is more or less like uh, challengeable here. I'm not saying math as a field is challengeable. I'm saying that math applied in economic sets where most of things are taken as constant is challengeable. So I don't focus much on the maths, but most on the concepts around it. If you know what the opportunity cost is, then you're comfortable in a room around economists, right? You know what they're talking about. Anyways, general knowledge aside, what is a numeraire? So, while we consider the composite good, X2 as a composite good, like prices of the rest of the things, we could take it as one. The budget line is defined by two prices and one income, but one of these variables is redundant because, yeah, of course, we could peg up one of the prices or the income to some fixed value and adjust the other variable so as to describe exactly the same budget set. So, they're playing around with math. So they have fixed the price of the good two as one, and you have pegged them as one. If we set prices of one of the goods as one, we often refer to that price as numeraire price, and the numeraire price is relative to which we are measuring. So pegging is different and numeraire is different. Numeraire is a price, whereas when you peg, you usually no pegging P2 as 1, and the second case we have P whatever. Pegging the price of one of the goods or income to one and adjusting the other price appropriately doesn't change the set at all. Hoga kuch. Anyways, we've seen that. Now tax. All of these are very set. It's like I'm setting mild tone to what we'll build on later. It's setting a very mild tone to all of it. Let's see. Tax. Tax has a lot of effect on the quantity consumed of a good and also the price. So, if a government, let's suppose, there's a quantity tax, that means the tax is on the quantity, each unit of the good the person purchases. So, how does the quantity tax affect the budget line? From the viewpoint of the consumer, the tax is like a higher price. There's a quantity tax of $T per unit, and so P1 becomes P1 plus T. Another kind of tax is value tax. नाम से पता चल रहा है यार. It's English. It's nothing more than that. It's just English. क्या बोलूँ मैं? I've done an honors in this subject and it's just English. Value tax is where we see the value of the good. There are different types of goods, right? There are giffen goods and there are let's see what kind of goods there are. Types of goods. So there are private goods, public goods, common resources, and club goods. Yeah, so there are different kinds of goods and also giffen goods as well. I don't know. Let's see here: capital goods, intermediate goods, fast moving consumer goods, durable goods, luxury goods, inferior goods, merit goods, and demerit goods. There are all sorts of goods. Yeah. Right. So now we know what a value tax is. Most states in the US have sales tax. Sales tax and value tax and ad valorem tax are almost the same, synonymous to each other, and we denote them as 1 plus T into price. The consumer has to pay P1 to the supplier and TP1 to the government for each unit. Okay. Interesting. All of this will matter when we start calculating for numericals. So let's see subsidy. Subsidy is quite the opposite of tax, we know. While you are being paid to buy a product, sort of a thing. Subsidy is usually on goods that are necessary in nature. Like in India, we have subsidy on LPG, we have subsidy on electricity bills and water bills, and we also have subsidies on ration for a section of society. So subsidy is quite the opposite. It reduces the prices. In case of quantity, it would be minus T, see minus S, while we had plus T in that. And if you're talking about ad valorem subsidy, then it's based on the price of the good being subsidized. So it gives you, the government gives you back $1 for every $2 you donate. Then your donations to charity are being subsidized at the rate of 50%. It's quite the opposite even in calculations. Okay, so what's a lump sum tax? Lump sum taxes or subsidy that the government takes away some fixed amount of money regardless of the individual's behavior. So it doesn't really matter what the price is. Similarly, some inward shift and outward shift. With quantity taxes and value taxes, there's a tilt in the budget line depending on which of the good is being taxed. But in lump sum tax, the tax shifts the budget line inwards because you have less to buy from. See, okay, I'll tell you what they're trying to say here. This is your budget line. You have 100 rupees to buy apples and oranges, and there's this based on your preferences and prices of the goods. Let's suppose 50 and 50. Now what they're doing is quantity tax is on, depends how much tax is on which one. Let's suppose government puts a tax on X1. So what it does is it makes the X1 expensive. So the budget line tilts. And the budget line shifts inwards. Because you can afford very less of X1 now, although you can afford the same of X2 in the same amount of money. So this happens in quantity tax, this happens in value tax. But when lump sum tax happens, lump sum tax means it doesn't really matter how much of the quantity you consume of good 2 or good 1. The government will take a chunk of it, whatever the amount of money you have. Let's suppose you have 100 rupees, then the government is going to take 10 rupees for given. So I don't think lump sum tax is I don't think lump sum tax. I have not seen lump sum tax in real. I have to check examples where it's applicable. So the budget line shifts inwards because now you just have 90 rupees to buy both oranges and apples. So by 10 rupees, you have shifted inwards. And with subsidy, if let's suppose there's a lump sum subsidy, then the budget line would increase because then instead of having 100, you'll have 110. It would have been easier if I had a digital pen to write all of this, but yeah, I'm too broke and lazy to buy it. Also, it's too much effort. So we've seen lump sum tax and subsidy. Let's come on to rationing now. Government also sometimes impose rationing constraints. This means that the level of consumption of good is fixed to be no larger than some amount. Ration certain foods like butter and meat. Suppose, for example, for good 1, we ration so that no more than X1 could be. Oh, easy. It's like, isn't it like oh yeah, it's just English. It's easier than novels. It's easier than fucking fiction. So what the government has done is they have. Let's imagine these are apples and these are oranges. So the government says that we have less number of apples because of some sort of an insect or parasite that ate most of the produce. Now, a lot of people can and want to consume quantity here, but they can't because they're rationed. Like in COVID, I'll take the example of how toilet papers were rationed, where there was a cap of buying just one set of toilet paper for one per person. So even though the person can afford and wants to afford 5 sets of them, the person can only buy one. So this is called rationing. So fucking easy. And yeah, I should not fly high in the sky. We'll all of this easiness. I'll just save it for the questions. Taxing consumption greater than X1. What is this? Sometimes taxes, subsidies, and rationing are combined. Okay, so this is a multiple combination of sort. So there's a good one. They're rationed on some level X1. The budget set for this consumer is depicted. Left. Okay, if the person consumes more than this amount, which is ration, then there will be a tax. So there's a different slope for that line. Okay, makes sense. Makes sense. Makes sense. Also, my teaching is very sloppy because I don't know who I am telling this to. I don't know my audience. I don't know how much of understanding the other person on the other side of the screen is. I don't know the understanding of that person. So I'm taking all of it as my own given understanding, and I have studied this for like 5 years now. 2 years in school and 3 years in college. This is the sixth year. It's the fourth year after graduation that I'm reading all of this. So it's more or less just common sense to me. Although the reason I'm doing this all over again is because I want to solidify these concepts, like just solidify and iron stamp them into my brain. And for that, if to build accuracy over numericals, I need strong foundations of theory. There's something I want to talk about is a kink. Not the arousal one, but a kink in the graph. It caught my eye. There's a food stamp program. Food stamp programs are not in India, so this might be a bit difficult for me to understand, but it's just one paragraph. Let's just read. There's a subsidy on food for poor people. Okay. It has been adjusted several times. Okay. Family of four. Okay. Prices, income. Okay. Depends on the income of the family. They are paid 83. 25. The cost for the full monthly allotment would be 25. What happened pre 1979? So in pre 1979, food stamp was ad valorem subsidy on food. That means added value, not a lump sum. The rate at which food was subsidized depended on the household income. Okay, the family of four that was charged 83 for the allotment paid $1 to receive 1.84 worths of food. Household that paid 25 was paying $1 to receive 6.12 worth of food. I don't understand. This is supposed to be quantity of good. Why is there a price? Curious. So all of these are number of goods, right? These are not prices. All of these are number of goods. They're not prices. Then why did it take 153 on the king? All of these are goods. All of these are all of these are quantity of goods. So this is a quantity of good. Then why do we have a king on $153 here? Americans are confusing. Although I do respect them, but I respect them because of the resources they have, the amount of money that's poured in for research, not generally because of their competency in the subject. I don't understand why is there a $200 year. These effects lead to the kind of kink depicted in 2.6. Households with higher incomes had to pay more for their allotment of food stamps, thus the slope of the budget line would steeper as household income increased. Instead of requiring households purchase food stamps, they are not simply given to qualified households. Suppose that a household now receives a grant of 200 of food stamps a month, then this means that the household can consume 200 more food per month, regardless of how much it is spending on other goods, which implies that the budget line will shift to the right. The only thing I understand from this is that pre 1979 it was ad valorem, value added subsidy, but after 1979 and changes in the policy to not be requiring all of the households but rather only being given to a certain section of people that lie in the income bracket, it has now become lump sum and not ad valorem, value added. That's why there's a shift and there's no steeping. There's a steep curve here, there's just a shift here. All the points to be noted, observations. Alright, we are done with chapter 2 budget constraints as well. We'll come back with more numericals and I'll also put it in the playlist. Alright, thank you. This is another video in how economics is common sense.